Welcome to another episode of the Drew Versa Show. Today I have my guest, Ken Yap. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Ken, I'm excited to have you. You are a master introducer in Silicon Valley. So, Ken, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show today was to talk about the power of introductions. You and I both have spent time in the US and in Asia, and in both cultures, introductions are done a little bit differently. So, I think it'd be fun to talk about the power of introductions. Who should you introduce to whom, and what can happen from the power of an introduction?
That's a great topic, Drew. I think coming from an awesome coach like yourself, that brings a lot of weight to the topics because you really got it. You're one of the coaches that I come across that really get it. So in a nutshell, I think that is part of the cultures and also attitude things about relationships, right? I mean, if you think about it, why would someone come to Drew for advice, right? So if it's not introduced, who would know Drews? And people certainly wouldn't open up their kimono and talk about their shortcomings. Most of us have egos, right? Especially as adults, self-conscious. So there, with that in mind, hey, it's best to be introduced, right? Now the question is, you got to contribute to the relationship first, so that you'll be introduced. So that's the secret.
The contribution, the mutual contribution.
I would equate relationship like a pot of flowers, right? Both you and I gotta want it. This applies to business, relationships, professional career, whatever, so on and so forth, right? So it's like, hey, I am not entitled to the relationship. You are not entitled to the relationships. Both gotta be willing to contribute and want it. Right? Now, if we do want it and contribute enough, pretty soon, without saying, just like a team sports, you will want to make this pot of flowers prosper. Isn't that true? Right? So therefore, we all got to start first. Right? It's like I reach out to you and say, hey, I really like this guy, cool looking guy. I don't know you from Jack, but you look cool and you have an awesome resume. Hey, I just stick up my hands, of a friendship and just say, hey, I want to get to know you, be sincere. And how can I contribute to this friendship here? Be straight up and be sincere. And with luck have it, hey, I come across one of the awesomest career coach that I come across, in my Rolodex. His name is called Drew. How awesome is that?
Ken, thank you for everything. And I just want to talk about your career journey. I appreciate you and your endorsements. And for the listeners, no, I did not pay Ken a dime to say any of this stuff. So Ken, thank you again. As far as your career journey, you have had quite a journey. Like me, you've been in the academic environment, you've been in the technology world, and now as an entrepreneur. So let's just talk about the career journey, because I think that's important too, with understanding the power of relationships and understanding how you may be in a job one day, it's not the job, maybe 2 years from now, but these introductions and meeting the right people and the right roles and just the evolution of self and career.
You really got it, right? So I share this with my son and all my friends, right? I always say your success and happiness in life require two things: your talents and the awesome people that surround yourself. Talents you can acquire through formal educations and self-discipline and learning. Quality people, you have to have a thick face like Ken, just to stick your hands out and to meet enough people, right? Just don't be shy. So that's pretty much it, right? And if you do that long enough, you can do whatever you want in life in terms of career. You can find all kinds of awesome people like Drew and so on and so forth, right? And hey, on the personal front, you might even find your dreams love. Who knows, right? So that's in a nutshell the power of introductions. So to answer your questions about my career, so there are 3 stages in my career. So first stage is being a nerdy engineer, right? When I When I grow up, I like to be a good engineer. So what is the definition?
Now, was that because you wanted to be an engineer, or that was the thing to do because your parents wanted you to be an engineer and have a great job? Because we do talk about life and get real on this show.
Right. Again, you always ask intriguing question as a good coach, right? Awesome coach. My parents never dictate what I would like to do, right? I was pretty good with computer. I built my very first Apple II computer at 17, while my friends were chasing girls, right? And I was like Steve Jobs of the world, right? Then when I got into college, I like to be a doctor because I like to help people. I like to serve good people. But guess what? I quit medical school because every time I see blood, I pass out.
That would not be a good career choice, Ken.
Exactly. So I retract back to my talent, right? Building computers. So finish engineering school, becomes computer engineers, design award-winning computers. That was fun. Now, after a while, I get bored because as you becomes more experienced in the arena and also the career path, the engineering career requires you to stay in the labs often. You hardly meet people. That wasn't fun for me. Fun for some people, that not fun for me, right? So I decided to change my career. Now, how do I do that? Well, speaking of the power of being introduced, like you talk about, I get to know friends and I say, hey, I like to explore different careers. Some of my friends says, marketing is awesome because I have the personalities, but I don't have the experience. Let's start with applications engineering. So that's a stepping stone. Let me introduce you to some friends. And before you know it, I got into that career. And before you know it, I got into marketing career. See, that's the power of being introduced.
I love it. It's taking your strengths and then also having somebody see your strengths, and maybe, if it's not directly that role, they create a role sometimes too with the right introduction.
Perfect. So you to make a point, you have the right insight, Drew, right? And you hit it right there in the spot. Just reach out here enough, and you get enough people to appreciate your passions, right? So to give you a perspective about, I found my first break in marketing. So I was an apps guy at a high-tech company called Cypress, right? Doing pretty well. One day, and a recruiter friend reached out to me and said, hey, there's a company called Samsung's across the street. They're hiring, they're looking for people. They want to talk to you. Not interested. I'm a cool Cypress dude. No recruiters, right? But the recruiter friend did me a great service by understanding my shortcoming, but also like to introduce me. So she actually set up a meeting with the president of Samsung Semiconductors of America. So she just called me up and said, hey, tell you what, the president of Samsung Semiconductor would like to meet you. Would you come? No expectation. It's not like a job interview or anything.
Yeah. Right? And what did you say?
Like, oh crap, I don't want to embarrass my friend, right? I better go because I don't want to embarrass my friend. So I went. So we just have a good conversations, and the guy asked me about myself, just like what you do, asked about myself and what I like to do, my passion, so on and so forth. And before you know it, lunch hours comes around. My to-be boss back then poked his head into the room and say, hey, how did it go? The guy with strong Korean accents and say, I like this guy. He should be working for us. And so that was the end of the story.
I love it. I love it.
Isn't that crazy?
It reminds me of a time when I was first in a professional sales role, and I was working with executives, CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies, and my job was to sign them up for an association I was working for. And one of the things that I would do during that time, Ken, is I would take people to hole-in-the-wall restaurants, because we are all the same, but yet we have titles and we have these things like you were talking about before going into that meeting, head trash, noise, where you're saying, I'm not worthy, or I'm not this, or oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. And at the end of the day, that CEO or managing director was exactly like you. And through luck and through hard work and different opportunities, they became who they are today. But it's just getting real with each other and having fun and connecting, and like you say, introducing to the right person and the right match of energy, the right match of technical skill, whatever. It's pretty interesting how people meet and then how things develop, like you're sharing.
Absolutely, you're right, Drew. I think that's what, based on my experience with lots of executives in the Bay Area, I think many of them can use your insights and coaching seriously, right? I mean, throughout my career and life, I meet a lot of executives and professionals. I noticed this: many of them identify themselves by their job titles. Isn't that funny?
I get it, and it's exactly what happened to me when I was a firefighter, and when I lost that career as a firefighter, there
You
was
lost your identity,
I
right?
lost. Yeah, I said, "Who am I?" Oh, oh my gosh, Then when everybody around you refers to you as your title, as a
Right.
CEO or boss or firefighter or police officer or nurse, doctor, you name it, and then that's gone. For me, I joke, I say I had a forced retirement, around 30 years old when I lost my career as a firefighter with injury. And at that point in time, it's what people who may be a CEO, they're very successful. And then when 50, 60 gets around and they have to be with themselves, all by themselves, that can be a scary place.
Absolutely. So that's why I become so pretty good at connecting people and introduce people, because oftentimes when I meet friends, I don't want to meet them at their fancy corner office. I say, hey, come meet me at specialty chain store, right? Sometimes I even meet them at like In-N-Out Burger, right? Our G4 Burger, whatever. Right? Because in that sense, we are just like college buddies. I don't care about your job titles. You don't care about what I do. We just hang and have a conversations. And here's the funny part: because we established the right trusting environment, we can have straight talks, just like what we have right now. And oftentimes, I just tell them in the face, right, like a friend. I'm like, hey, Johnny Bravo, right, to protect the innocents, right? You're full of crap, man, right? He could be a VP of a major company. I say, you need to sit down with an awesome coach like Drew and get your things straightened away. And the guy will be like, oh, okay. How awesome is that? So it's kind of fun for me in that sense. I
Yeah.
really do that guy a service by calling him out in private, right? And when I connect the guy to an awesome coach like you, right? And then things just prosper because we are already established the preliminary trust level, right? What I call the critical trust level, right? We already crossed that, and then you can just comes in as a trusted advisor, right? Not just somebody, right? And then both of you will prosper, becomes friends, and doing great things together. How awesome is that?
Awesome. And the foundation of trust is key. So you and I were talking before the show and catching up, and we were talking about the difference between introductions in Silicon Valley and introductions in Asia. And there's quite a bit of difference in the care of an introduction and what goes in and how people are introduced in these two very different cultures. You want to talk about that a little bit, Ken?
Sure, sure. So basically, in Silicon Valley, most of us are, including myself, right? Most of us are self-centric because in Silicon Valley, there is no shortage of talents. And as a matter of fact, there are tremendous talents in Silicon Valley, right? Many of them have double, triple degrees, so on and so forth, right? Super smart people. And therefore, oftentimes, we in general, as a community, have this called what I call egotistic kind of mindset. It's like, hey, I'm hot, I'm good, right? I don't need to be introduced. I just come out here and talk to you like I'm hot shot, right? It's kind of funny, right? To give you good examples, this builds over to relationship portions. That's why many relationship in the Silicon Valley falls apart. funny story to share with you. One of my good friend is a relationship coach here. She's in Shanghai right now. She'll be a good partners of yours, right? She coaches executives how to find true loves. See, it's similar, right? And she just, close her eye and rub her head, right? She's like, Ken, is this normal? I'm in Silicon Valley for 30 plus years. She's in Silicon Valley for like 15 years. So I have a little bit more experience in the area. She say, how come most of my clients have such a huge ego and they don't need to be introduced to the girls? They just come to the girl and say, hi, Jane, I'm a hotshot Ken. I'm a chief marketing officer of a company. See, my house is on Los Altos Hills. You gotta come date me. How crazy is that?
How would that go over in another culture?
In Asia, people thought, that's like obnoxious, right? That's an obnoxious attitude. Even in Silicon Valley, I mean, that's how it goes. And it turns around, and the girl's like, oh yeah, I'm pretty, I'm good looking, I'm a Yale graduate. Why the heck should I date you? See, the attitude is very competitive. It's different. But in Asia, people are a little bit more humble, in my opinions. People are like, well, hey, could you introduce me to the awesomest? Drew, I heard so much good thing about him. I kind of like a little bit antsy to reach out my hand. Could you, right? I mean, the attitude is different. But it goes a long way, being humble.
What was interesting when I was in Asia, Ken, and maybe you can shed some light on this, was a lot of younger people who are entrepreneurs and they're CEOs of startup companies and doing some really cool things. They are afraid to be on LinkedIn and they are afraid to reach out to decision makers because there's a cultural context that's very different in Asia than there is here. So how can somebody in Asia, because you and I both have a mixed group of listeners from both the US and Asia, so somebody's in Asia, how can they feel okay about getting the right introduction to somebody in the US and accelerating that? Because we know that there's so much economic opportunity, a globally connected world and economy that we're living in today, and the speed in which the US introductions are made are very fast, and in which things are done in Asia through dinners and lunches and time and really trust building exercises, I would say, almost, right? Because if you don't pass the dinner meeting or you don't pass the lunch meeting, it's done, right? It's
Right.
a done deal. So from there, how can people understand more of the differences, and accelerate the opportunities to do business together in our multicultural and connected world today?
I think for Asian culture is another extremes. Well, I would classify American culture is more on the cocky side, right? Pretty extremes. But Asian culture is on the extremes of too introvert. So that's the challenge, right? So I came from both cultures, so I can relate a little bit, right? And like we talked about earlier, your attitude decides your altitude, right? By Zig Ziglar's, right? Now, what gives me confidence is this: a couple of things. Understands the facts, have good mentors like yourself, right? Coaching me. So that's the key, right? So if I were a young entrepreneur trying to grow myself with my talent, my network, first things first is seek out a bunch of mentors, but oftentimes mentors have limited time. Seek out awesome coach like Drew, and I'm not joking, right? So that's that. So the second thing is that you got to know the facts. Once you know the fact, that gives you tremendous self-confidence, right? Like crazy Ken here, right? So here's how I discover my self-confidence. To give you a good example, I learned stats. I like to learn. Okay, I'm not the smart guys. Never a straight A student. Good enough. Okay, enough to finish graduate schools. That's okay, right? Now, in the class, at work, usually when I say Native American, is like people who are born in America, right? Anybody that born in America. we as Americans have a really loud culture, loud, meaning that we talk too much, right? Self-centered, right? In the classrooms, stick our hands out, professor, I know this and that, whatever, and we're coaching professors. Isn't that crazy, right? In meeting rooms, we raise our hand, teach our boss whatever, and talk craps and not contributing to the projects, right? All along, I thought I wasn't good enough. So I think your audience could relate to that. All along, even though I read a lot, I make a lot of friends, I thought I wasn't good enough because all my peers are like, wow, this is a good talker, talk fast, with the right accents, and they could yap away using my last name, right? Yap away all day, right? Blah, 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 whatever. Now, and then I come across a few stats that will really, really impress your audience, that encourage them to seek you out and for your advice. Is this: America is the largest economy on planet Earth. Guess what is the percentage of Americans finish college?
Give the listeners 3 options, Ken. Option A
Okay.
is option A.
Option A, 20%. Option B, 50%. Option C, 75%. Take a wild guess. Biggest economy on planet Earth, right?
All right, and the answer is?
And the answer is, I guess 75%. Every 4 American, 3 finish college. Now here's the craziest part. Only a quarter of Americans finish college. 1 out of 4 in the biggest economy on planet Earth. And now here's the craziest stat, right? Craziest stat for your audience to seek Drew's out, right? To seek your advice. According to stats, these are all stats. I don't make it up. They can verify, right, in the internet. Of the Americans that finish college, so let's just say most of them finish at 23. So let's say at 25, and the life expectancy is 78 in America. So let's just say they all drop dead at average 75. So from 25 to 75, that's half a century. Guess what? Of the American that finished college, how many books they will be reading for the rest of their life in half a century spans. So again, guess for your audience, right? So let's just say choice number 1, average 1 book a year. That's 50 books for the rest of their life, right? Second choice, that's average, right? So second choice is, say, 2 books a year. So that would be like 100 books for the rest of their life. Okay. So the third choice is maybe 1 book every 10 years. So that's 5 books for the rest of their life. So which one is going to be for the biggest economy on planet Earth? And people can talk all day at work and in school.
Which one is it, Ken?
It's shocking. Less than 5 books for the rest of their lives.
The average American who is college educated reads less than 5 books.
5 good books for the rest of their life.
Wow.
Isn't that shocking to you?
That's shocking. I need the source.
You go Google it.
Okay.
Right? Go Google it. So here's the profound implications to me and to you and to your audience. The profound implication to me is like, wow, I average 4 to 5 books a year. That means at this pace, I am, growing as a person 1 lifetimes for the average Americans every year. So that gives me self-confidence. The opposite is, over time, I'm like, they just talk about the same crap again and again and again and again, year after year after year.
Well, and I agree with you because a lot of clients who start coaching, they feel stuck. And when you look at that, they get done with college, they do exactly what's prescribed of them. And why we are the largest economy in the world is we have this thing called consumerism. So people feel that they have to buy, spend, spend, spend. Companies in Silicon Valley, God bless them all, but they've created monsters in this world where literally your self-worth is based on your likes. So how many likes you get, how much social external, like you're talking about, the external stimulus, the external approval versus that internal. And then when people have to go deep to find out who they are, what the purpose is, why they're here, what their calling is, and then the action needed to move forward, right? So it can be planting the seed, what I do with some of my coaching clients. Hey, read this. Here's a link. Check this link out.
That's correct. So that's in nutshell. I think the insights will give your audience, some self-confidence and encouragement to reach out to you, right? And by the way, I got to congratulate you. According to the emotional quotient, or no, the emotional needs, I think Tony Robbins kind of claims that that's his thing. I doubt it. Probably come from somewhere, right? So there, you probably come across this. There are 6 emotional needs. Are you aware of that?
I am aware.
Huh?
I am aware, but let's go through all 6.
Okay, for the benefit of your audience, right?
Yep.
So it's just to encourage them to come talk to you. See, the first pair of emotional needs are certainty and uncertainty, right? So that's what I call the high schoolers emotional maturity, right? I like a girlfriend, but I also like her to be a bad girl, right? Some variety, right? Certainty and variety. So that's that. So that's same thing with girls, right? But when we grow out of that, that's what I call high schooler and also college people. It's like sense of belonging and recognitions. Me. I'm so good, right? Hey, look at my gang, my bro, right? I tease my son all the time, who joins a fraternity back in college years. I'm like, hey, that's not a fraternity, that's a gang. I'm teasing him, right? Sense of belonging, right? And guess what? After college, most people don't grow past that. According to the stats, only less than 5% of the populations, I like to use stats because you can all go verify that, grow past these first 2 pairs. They get into sense of growth and sense of contribute. That's why lots of business leaders and aspiring managers or leaders, they need to seek you out as a coach, because you are truly genuine in coaching people by encouraging them to grow. You are growing and you're contributing to the relationships. That's fantastic, Drew. And most people don't have that, what I call emotional maturity. Now, you be the awesome coach that really can guide people because you already got past those needs. And guess what? Many of the executive contacts that I come across in Silicon Valley, go figure, these are like vice presidents. Some of them are even so-called chiefs, right? So when I talk to them, the context of discussion is always me. Look at my company. I'm part of the big shot. Me. Whatever. They never talk about growing themselves as a person. They never talk about contributing to friendships or even community. Is that crazy?
It is what it is, as I say, and it's human. So I think that's where we have to realize is a lot of these things are the human journey. And I've met some great friends who are executives, and I'll never forget one conversation I had, executive that I know very successful, and he shared with me that he had never taken a trip by himself. And I've been around the world by myself. I have been in hospitals by myself, with one where I thought I would nearly die during that time. And those experiences, when you really are by yourself, you learn just on a far deeper level of who you are, why you're here, what you want. And then from a leadership capacity standpoint, how do you want to lead? Because if this was your last day, if this was your last moment, this is what I always like to ask people: what would you be doing? How would you be spending your time? how would you be leading people? How would you make your programs better at work if you're the CEO for single parents, for people going through different traumas, different things like that that happen in life? That's what we need to use the workplace for. And introducing people, Ken, is key, because without the conversation, without the introductions, we can't even get to this point that we're at now. Through this conversation has evolved into what are the basic needs that people need in order to evolve, right? So when you are connecting, when you are together, after you have had the introduction, you can start having amazing things take place and transpire.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
So
Ken,
that,
it's great having you on the show. Great catching up with you. Is there anything else you would like to leave with the audience? Anything more about yourself, what you have going on, things like that, like you would like to share? And then how can people connect with you?
well, people can look me up on LinkedIn. I think you're gonna share the link on your website, right? But this is a food for thought for your audience, and that's very much relevant to them and to your awesomeness. Your awesomeness reminds me of one of my great mentor. He's like a 6 foot tall white guy, right? I'm a 5'7" Asian guy, right? When he talks to me, he likes to hold my hand like little kids. I'll be like, yes, daddy, right? Really funny guy, really funny guy. So his famous quote that stick in my mind is this. He says, Ken, for you to be happy and successful in life, you really got to know three things. I think this is word for what he says. Know what you know, what you're good at. Know what you do not know. Okay, meaning know what you're not good at. So meaning that it's an attitude shift, right? Most of us just like, hey, I'm really good at everything, but there's nothing I cannot do, right? That's bad. So what he's saying is that know what you know what you do not know. That's the key, right? Attitude change. The third one is the secret. Who knows what you do not know, right? So therefore, I like to leave this food for thought for your audience. It's like, hey, know what you know, have the courage to know what you do not know, and better yet, have the courage to seek out to an awesome coach like Drew and seek your advice and coaching. And together as a team, lots of things will happen. Great things will happen. How awesome is that? Leave this world a better place.
And then you call Ken Yap to find out who you need to know when you don't know what you need to know, but you need to know the person that you don't know. So, Ken, thank you so much. A pleasure having you on the show. And thank you again, Ken, for sharing the power of introductions.
Thank you. You're awesome, Drew.
You're awesome too, brother.